Welcome to our webinar on version 5.1. So the game plan for today will be, first of all, to look at the new documentation that's available, the various tools to help you out without needing our help. We'll look at what was new in version 5.0, so things not to forget, because 5.0 was a pretty major update. You'll see 5.1 has many exceptions which we've managed. And our latest version in Margill 5.1 is from May 28th. So this is the version itself. There's an upcoming version later in June. And we'll see the couple of changes in there, not nice little changes. To obtain the latest update, go to margill.com/get. We'll also look at these important features. This is like a recap, more or less, of things I see when I give some training. People forget these things. You should use these features, but they're not. We're also mentioning that Margill is available as a service, so online directly, on the cloud, should I say. And we'll be finally looking at what's happening in version 5.2, which will be released in early fall. In terms of documentation, our knowledge base is a really important tool for you guys. It includes over 100 articles on how to do this or that. We have videos. We try publishing videos on a regular basis. We answer questions and detail these questions when they're interesting for other clients also. We also look at special scenarios and special calculations, quite useful for you. There's now a search engine in the knowledge base. So you can go in the knowledge base, use, for example, Excel or QuickBooks or whatever, and search the Margill Loan Manager, and you'll find the pertinent articles on that, since it's getting to be quite extensive. Our white paper, we've had time to update, because of the crisis, we've had time to update our white paper, The Lost Art of Interest Calculation. It was first published in 2008. There were minor changes, but in spring of 2020, I did some major changes to the paper itself. So it's a very nice, boring read. Boring, yeah. But it's very pertinent if you want to really understand how interest is calculated, the various methods of calculating. So if you're not sure on how you're calculating your interest, take a look at this paper. I know many banks consult this because people forget how to do their interest calculations. There'll be a new user guide. Right now we're still at version 4.4, which is of course getting old. The new version will be available later this summer, version 5.1. It's got over 1,000 pages. It's incredible. There's so much documentation, so many screenshots in there. Nobody reads the user guide, of course. It's made really to consult specific sections on a specific topic. So it's worth looking at, and as soon as that's released, it'll be available in PDF and also in an interactive form or HTML format. So we'll advise you in our newsletters. Of course, always read our newsletters. If you don't receive them, tell us and we'll add you, or maybe they go to your spam or something. But it's good for us to know if you're receiving these newsletters. Okay, don't forget from 5.0. If you're still using version 4.4 or 4 point something, you really should update to version 5.0. We created what we call a sandbox. So when you update from version 4.x to 5.0, you can transition slowly and test in the sandbox. What it does, it makes a copy of your existing database with existing data. It makes a copy, and you can compare a few reports and see where everything is on the penny between the old version and the new version. It's important, of course, if you use the sandbox, not to change the live version, because if somebody makes a change in the live version, then your sandbox won't be up to date anymore. So you'll say, hey, why is there a difference? So maybe keep it up for a couple of hours. In version 5.0, an irritant before that was the first payment date. It can now be changed, it can now be deleted, but only in loans created after 5.0. So if you have loans created in version 4.4, you will not be able to change the first payment date. So what? They're older loans. But as of 5.0, you can change that. That's going to be it's very useful for people. The bulk import of data via Excel This is with the what we call the global changes. You can now import a whole bunch of information via an Excel sheet. For example, I want to add a new custom field called, I don't know, it could be called the type of, the location in terms of region. So you want to add a region north, south, east, west for each of your clients. You could add that in bulk for the loan itself. You can, of course, have record color. I think most of you know that by now. We added also an extra 15 colors. You can send emails in batches. You highlight your loans in the main window, right-click with the mouse, and you can send emails in batches using a template. Dear John, don't forget that, blah, 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 whatever. Quite a useful feature. You can now pay pure principal with the paid principal line status. Before, you could also have a due payment, right-click, fix principal, and the third option, which is pay pure principal. Now it's a little easier. You can say simply with the line status, have a paid principal, which will pay pure principal and the APR fees. We'll look at this a little later on. You can import loan applications from your website in JSON or Excel format. If you have a high volume of loans, especially if you're doing consumer loans usually, people can apply on your website and you can send everything to Margill on a on a preliminary database in which you can approve loans. If you approve them, then they go to the main database. If you don't approve them, they stay in the preliminary database. The web portal, this is a fun feature. You can, on the web, you can show your clients, your borrowers, or your investors their balances, their next payment due, any kind of information. You can have it available for them on the web, and they log in with a username and password and access their data, live data from your database directly. Super important. And people they're starting to use them slowly. It's called the advanced queries. So before version 5.0, you had to select the loans in the main window. You sort, you select, you display some loans or not. And then you select them, and then you print your report. With advanced queries, you can create your own queries that would say, for example, I only want active loans with a specific creditor or a specific type of loan, which were created after 2019, and it would only pick up these types of loans, these loans in the report. And you can go in so much detail with these queries. So really, really important to avoid, to save time, avoid errors, and get only the pertinent reports, the pertinent records in your reporting. So in version 5.1 and 5.2 coming up, our goal is to reduce the potential of human error. We're putting lots of emphasis on this to further automate processes. You'll see why later on. And allow for massive or bulk changes in the database. So we don't have, huge, important, cool features, but we're refining the software as time goes on. So what's new in version 5.1, should I say? Don't forget, you can look at the release notes under Support Download Center Release Notes. We're only going to look at the major changes. And you'll see sometimes they're very tiny changes, but if they apply to you, you'll say, oh yes, this will be interesting for me. Some of you may say, well, there's not much in here for me, but we're looking at exceptions. Most of these are exceptions and to simplify your life. We're going to have a screenshot for each of these. We have a new module for participation loans where investors invest and divest at different dates. This is an optional module. You know if you're in that category or not. And as I mentioned, we're going to have a release in June of 5.1 with these 3 changes, which we'll be looking at right now. So this is the page on our website with the release notes. So there's lots of detail in here, more than in this presentation. So let's begin. If you are using simple interest capitalized, that is, if you're not using simple interest, and if you're not using what we call the effective rate method, the effective rate is what I recommend the most. It's the banking method, and it's the most practical way of working. But an older way is what we call simple interest capitalized, where you see those green lines where you capitalize. So as of version 5.1, you can now specify the date of first capitalization. Before, it was always capitalizing on the origination anniversary date. So here in this case, it would always do on 0706 on a monthly basis here. Now you can say, okay, I want to start capitalizing on 0801, and it'll capitalize on the first of the month without you having to fudge the origination date. You must also activate this in the tools user settings, and then you have to click on ask date of first capitalization. So if you're using it, you'll find this saves a lot of headaches. You can now hide obsolete line statuses. This is only with the latest version, which is from May 28th. You can have hide from menu. Before it was do not use, now it's hide from menu. So even if you were using the line status in older loans and you're no longer using it, what we used to do, we used to bring these all the way to the bottom, all these line statuses. Now you can simply say hide from menu, and if it is never used in any loan, it would become overstrike here, it would be striked out. If it is used somewhere, you can still hide from menu, but it won't be struck out, or whatever you call that, but it won't be shown in new records per se. So again, it's a way to reduce human error possibilities. In terms of what we call workflow, we're increasing workflow in Margill as time goes on. We added a new feature in which users cannot change their record status. So if I have a user who creates a draft, so he can only create drafts, for example, or something else, he would not be able to change to active. I could also have another one who can set whatever he wants, but they cannot close up files. So you can do these types of things now. It's really important to look at their user rights. For example, bypass locked historical transactions. Some users, you say, I locked the past, they cannot change it. Others can change it. It can change the past. We also have users cannot delete records. That's really important. You should check this for just about everyone. So nobody's allowed deleting records except the admin, for example. So this is important to look at. These are not new changes, but except for this one, but it's important to look at these things. The grace date, again, this is an exception. This is my last, line 12 is my last line of my payment schedule. My client didn't pay on 0506, but paid on May 17th instead. I don't want to charge extra interest. I simply want to say for my transactions, I want to know it's recorded on the 17th, so I can now have a date that's after my last payment date. It's useful for a few clients out there. Change interest rates for multiple loans for a time period only. Because of COVID, we see many of our users, especially development agencies or development banks, they are giving their clients, their customers, their borrowers a break for a couple of months. For example, now we can say, okay, from April 1st till July 31st, I want to charge 0% interest. So only for this period, I can say it's an interest-free loan for 3 months, or I could reduce by a percentage point, so add to actual rates minus 1%. So we see this in emergency loans. Could be useful for you also. There are videos on how to create these loans in our knowledge base, and I think somebody's going to put a link in the presentation. Right, David? You can create, this is a more or less useful feature for now. You can specify a default due payment. For example, you create a schedule with a payment of $150 per month. Automatically, the default would be a due payment. So you'll have 26 payments with $100, £100, €100 or whatever, with a due payment. You could specify that my default instead is due payment by check, due payment by EFT or whatever. It will be particularly useful when we offer the option to do interest paid in advance schedules in version 5.x. So this type of payment would pay interest only, even if there's no interest outstanding. You can do this, but only right now, in the future, not in the past. Anyways, I won't get into that. You can now hide the word term. The word, see, we have two of these. We ask you for a number of payments twice, for amortization and for term. So what we can do is, the amortization is, for example, I have a mortgage amortized over 20 years, but for which the term is 5 years. So we'd have 240 payments here and 60 payments for the term. And this is confusing if you're doing short-term loans. So what you can do is hide in tools, settings, use settings. You can hide the word term. So this is before, and after. See, notice here, I simply have number of payments amortization. So it's a little less confusing for new users. Less is better if you ask me. And you can add more features later on. Again, this is a super important feature in which I can change the refund order for column fees. Don't forget, when there's a payment made, we first refund column fees 1, 2, 3, 4, interest, then principal. In some cases, especially if we see some tax and insurance escrow, sometimes you may want to say, I don't want to refund my NSF fees first. I want to pay tax or insurance first. In this case, the payment of whatever, $2,199, I want to pay the interest first, the insurance first, then the NSF fees, then the tax, then the admin fee, if you have all these fees in your schedule. So it changes the order for this particular line that you've selected. So you highlight the line, right-click with the mouse, and you select what is paid first. So insurance will be paid first, then NSF fees, then tax, then admin. So it really will put this on the top. It won't be insurance, then admin. So it follows a normal order, except for this exception. Same kind of principle with principal AL, not principal LE, with the fees and APR. So if you finance some administrative fees, for example, $2,500, pounds, whatever, on a $25,000 loan, when it's paid back in terms of accounting, I will pay on a prorated basis. So I will pay 10% of APR fees, and my paid principal will be 90% with the paid principal line status. Now with this new feature, with paid principal, I right-click with the mouse. I say pay principal payment, pure principal and APR fees. I can say pay pure principal or pay APR fees first. And we'll see the example here. Pay pure principal. So notice here, I'm paying only principal. I'm not paying any APR fees, as opposed to this line here where I'm paying on a prorated basis. In the second situation, I say pay APR fees first. And since my payment is not high enough to pay everything, it'll pay 100% APR fees. If I change my payment to $3,000, then it'll pay all my APR fees. So I'm paying off the $2,500, and the rest will go to paid principal. And notice the interest rate becomes green to show that there's something special about this particular line. Again, these are for exceptions. This is a nice feature where you can charge automatic column fees based on the number of days late. A human must first, well, if we can fit in this example, we'll look at the example afterwards, but here I'm saying if the person is late by 5 days, I want to charge $25 with a paid late payment. So here we go. A human must intervene and say it's a paid late payment. We have no choice. A human must do this. This window pops up. They should have paid on 0806. They paid on the 15th instead. So the fees will automatically apply. There's a little note here which will tell you that it would be fees that would apply. In the other situation, again, the guy's late. Instead of paying on 0706, they paid on 0907. So, well, it depends if it's month, day, year, but let's just say I think my month and day were messed up here. So they paid, let's say, 2 days late. So in other words, there wouldn't be fees here. Yeah, I think my month and day were inversed here. No big deal. A fun feature for those who want to mass change schedules without going through the post-payment tool. With Control-Alt-Shift-11, I can take my due payments and change them to the four other types of due payments. So I want to select all these four due payments. They're in blue. Right-click with the mouse. Control-Alt-Shift-11, and I want to change them to due payment, extra payment, or due payment cash or whatever. You're able to do that very easily. There's another feature also, Control-Alt-Shift-F12, which now allows you to change it. Instead of being changed to automatically paid payment, you could change it to something else. So all these lines will be changed to paid payment EFT. It used to exist, but only with paid payment. So again, more versatility, flexibility. New reporting fields. It's a cool one. We often see, for example, let's say a client misses a $150 payment. He calls you back a couple days later. He goes, listen, I want to update my schedule. I want to update my payments so that I'm back to zero to what I was supposed to pay. So right now what you have to do is insert a line on the date, and you right click, you say payments adjusted for balance equals zero. It's now included in this in the main window or in the reports. You now have the amount due to come back to what it should have been originally. It's longer processing time to load your main window. So we had a feature that says activate the amount due variables in the system administrators. So the best thing if you have a big database is to try it out. And if it doesn't overly increase the calculation time, you can add this in. So really quickly on your main window, you know what the amount, the real outstanding amount is at the current date. You can also, of course, you should probably use what we call the overnight rates or the overnight tasks. So this is computed automatically at midnight at 1 o'clock. We'll come back to this afterwards. In other reporting fields, the participation loans, total amount and percentage for each creditor. These are new fields. And the tally of number of line statuses. For example, I want to know how many unpaid payments I have for a specific period or for a specific client. So you could say how many I have paid EFTs, paid cash, all unpaids, how many partial or late payments, etc. So it gives you a number, kind of a fun feature. Column fees are now allowed on the paid principal line status. I don't have anything to show you. It's just simply allowed, big deal. In upcoming version for June, somewhere in June, late June, we're already mid-June, but something that's coming up. It's a mass change in the payment schedules of the payment amount, the column fees, the custom column, all those extra columns to the far right, and the comment, which is more or less useful. So it allows you to update a host of data in the payment schedule for the future only, not for the past. For example, you have to change the column fees for all upcoming or due payments. Your escrow is about to change, so you're reevaluating your escrow in the month of July. So, and I think the person knows what I'm talking about. So instead of changing them one by one each loan, it would be a real hassle. You can go in and say, okay, as of this date, my new tax, my new insurance, and my new payment is this amount, and it would be massively changed for all upcoming payments as of a certain date. If you charge sales taxes, it could also change. Let's say that the sales taxes go up, and with all the government plans, all the money given out, I'm sure they're going to increase the sales taxes in states and provinces. So if you're charging taxes, you can change the tax rates all at once for future payments. So it'll update your column fees along with the payment amount, which must be reflected. Since your fees increase, your payment must also increase to reach zero at the end. For those who have used this before, you'll understand. I can now import the monetary columns in the schedule, column M and O. So these are the monetary columns, which you couldn't do before. And we've also allowed to add here in the types of lines you're adding. We are now allowing what we call the other line statuses. For example, if you do escrow, you could say July 1st, here are all the payments made by me, the creditor, to the to the city, to the town, or to the county, or whatever, with an other line status. So they could be bulk imported into Margill with a monetary amount which you're paying back. It has nothing to do with the payment schedule where the borrower pays. It's where you're giving out money. And then you can recompute your escrow balance with this. So it can be mass imported into Margill. Mass email testing tool. We've noticed some clients say, hey, how come I'm not able to send out more than 50 or 70 or 100 or 500 emails? It's blocking me after a while. Margill is on a smart software in terms of sending. What we do, we knock on your internet provider. We say, hey, here are emails to send. Simply send them. We don't have any control on that. So what happens often is that your email provider will block the number of emails you can send. So we created a tool in which you put in a few emails here, for example. So I put in Mark, I put in David, I put in whoever else. I can put in 20 emails, and I would send number of emails 20, or I'd say 10 to each of these. So I'd have 10 times 20, I'd send out 200 emails, or I could put 100, send out 2,000. You put in a test subject, a test body, and you say send, and the message will respond send, or we'll try getting the message as to why it's being interrupted. We don't have a huge control on this, but it's a good testing tool to see how far you can get in terms of emails per minute. Otherwise, you'll be spammed or something. You'll be considered spam. Don't forget, with electronic funds transfer cannot be done in the US with Agave. It used to be called Intrix. In Canada, with Perceptech, you can manage the bounced payments directly in Margill. Using EFT, electronic funds, or ACH is such a time saver. It's really important. You save a lot of time, you save errors, etc. Really important. Take advantage of what we call, I mentioned before, the overnight tasks. So this is to compute overnight the balances, to send out automatic emails, to do backups. It can all be done overnight at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, where you save a lot of time and it avoids problems with backups and stuff like that. Quite easy to set up. Your tech person can set this up. For document merge, in version 4.4, there used to be only rich text format. We have a much more sophisticated tool with a docx now. You can try that instead of RTF. You can block, I mentioned before, you can block users from changing historical transactions. So, for example, 10 days before the current date, you can no longer change anything that's older than 10 days. It's good to avoid problems. And some users are allowed to change historical transactions over X number of days. You can set compulsory fields. So let's say, for example, the salutation, dear or Mr., Mrs., whatever, is compulsory. You can set it as compulsory, or even custom fields, the industry or whatever, must be entered before you can save. I find it's a hassle, but it's a way to avoid errors or missing data. You can send out automatic emails X number of days before the payment. So, dear John, don't forget that the payment is due on July 12th. Make sure the payment is in your bank account. Otherwise, call me ASAP. It can also be emails that are sent out. Dear John, you missed the payment. It bounced, so please call me ASAP. These emails go out automatically as long as you create the rule to do this. The web portal, we mentioned it for borrowers and creditors. Quite a useful feature. I'm giving quite a few trainings these days. People have a bit more time on their hands. And I see some clients are not even using, if they're not using EFT or ACH, they're updating loan by loan when the payment is made. That's absurd. They open up the loan, they change it from due payment to paid payment, they save and they close. No, you don't do that. There is a mass payment tool to say all these payments were due today, tomorrow, next week, yesterday. I can change them all from due payment to paid or unpaid or partial or late all at once. So you save a lot of time if you got some kind of volume. Always look at Margill as if you had 1,000 or 5,000 loans. You should not do anything manually except for, of course, the exceptions have to be done manually. There are ways to do things in a lot more efficient manner. As I mentioned, key is essential for maximum efficiency. We offer remote training a couple of hours here, a couple of hours here, and on-site training when we can travel again. I'll be very happy to travel to visit you guys. It's worth spending a couple of days together for more complex situations. Not always required, but I do travel a bit, and when I do visit, people really appreciate it, or at least do some phone training and some updates in terms of training. As we mentioned very quickly, you are able to have Margill as installed on Microsoft Azure. The updates are done by us. The backups are done by us. It's Microsoft Azure security, should be higher security than maybe even your own server, who knows. You can access from anywhere in the world. You'd be able to log in margill.net. Then you would download the remote desktop session, and you'd be able to access your database. Yay, I'm on holiday. I can look at my loans. Yay. For more information, please contact Margill support. It's on a monthly basis. You have to pay on a monthly basis. Finally, what's coming up in version 5.2, there'll be a cool executive dashboard in the main window where you see some fundamental information very quickly. How many loans I did last week, how many loans I did last year, how many loans, what's coming up, all these kinds of nice little graphics which you'll be able to see. It's kind of fun. You'll be able to do overnight production of reports. Some larger clients often say, hey, I need a report every day. Right now, a human has to do this. What will happen is you'll be able to produce a report. It's created at midnight at 12:01 or whatever, 1 o'clock in the morning. It's produced with the current date or whatever dates you want. Your third-party system, your accounting package, picks up this new file and updates your database, your accounting package or whatever else. We're also creating an API with the Salesforce CRM. It's only with Salesforce right now since our development tool allows it. Salesforce is probably the biggest one out there, so that's why there's this tool right now. So data can be thrown to Salesforce from Margill, or Salesforce throws it into Margill with a simple click. So it'll be very interesting, and we'll be able to create slowly for other applications also, for other software third-party vendor applications. But right now with Salesforce, it will be available in 5.2. For security, you'll be able to set line statuses with expected payment of 0 so that your outstanding is always perfectly calculated based on your special line statuses. I think you understand if you're using this. For the other 1 to 10 line statuses, you'll be able to say that the payment must be 0 if you need this. For example, you want to add a column fee of $50 on a different date. There's no payment on that line. So you'd call it administrative fee on January 1. Payment must be 0, so your user cannot mess up and put a payment in there of $50. They'll put it in the right column called administrative fee. So again, to reduce chances of error. We've also improved the default column fees management. It doesn't ring a bell that much, but for us it's important. And that's it. So for more information, you can go on the release notes. That's directly on our website in the support page. You can update to version 5.1 on /get, margill.com/get. If you have any questions, you can call us. We're most of us are working from home, but you can still, there's somebody at the office. You can reach 450-621-8283. Best thing is still support@margill.com. We can include your questions and our answers in the database, of course, anonymously. So that pretty much covers 5.1. Again, I cannot overemphasize the importance of training and staying up to date with the software. So thanks again for watching this. You can always refer to it. It'll be online on YouTube and in our knowledge database. I wish you the very best. Stay safe and don't hesitate to call. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.